Derek, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Of course, yeah, Golf Better Tucson. What's the story behind the handle? Because it's always an interesting thing that when we start out in social media. I mean, you've got 149,000 followers on Instagram, 33,000 followers on TikTok. Why not your name? And then, like, tell us, is there a backstory to that?
It was a name I thought of so long ago, and I had no intention to do anything big or great, or I didn't know if people would pay attention to me. It's like, Monday Q guy. He's like my favorite Twitter follow. If you like,
Yeah,
his Twitter's terrible because he didn't think it was gonna ever be anything. And I teach in Tucson, and I just thought of it, and I'm not really stuck with it. I have, when my Instagram got shut down for a bit, I started Derek Deminski Golf. I just, I don't know. Golf Bear Tucson's fine. I don't care about my name or anything like that, I guess.
yeah. You can't go back now, man. Everybody knows like who that is, right? Which is cool.
Yeah.
Like you've done a nice job of branding your stuff. When did that start? When did you start social media? And I know that you say it wasn't a goal, but I mean, we all sort of, we're our own brand, as I always say to
Sure.
young professionals.
Yeah, I believe it was maybe 2014, 2015. And the intent was I love this game. It's not a job, it's a passion. I've always enjoyed it. I enjoy learning. I enjoy just so many things about it. I'm kind of a golf sicko. So I started it for that intention, just to, I was getting into instruction, just wanted to share my thoughts and just ideas, I guess. I started around the same time as George Gankis. He's been a great friend to me as well. When he had like 1,000 followers and
Yeah,
was doing all of his funny videos, and he's been an awesome help to me myself. So just started in that early. Unfortunately, I wish I would have started in YouTube so I could be playing nice courses and making lots of money doing
right.
that.
Yeah,
Good for all those people, very smart. But just Instagram was fine at the time, and I've just used it really, not really for business. I don't do affiliates. I don't do any of that. If you've noticed, it's just to meet
right.
cool people like yourself and students, and just share my passion for the sport.
Yeah, I love it. That's kind of the same way with me. I just like posting swings, and that's pretty much all I did. I didn't do as many tips, like I did a bunch of that on YouTube back in the early days. But honestly, I did it for my players. My
Cool.
juniors would get pissed if I wouldn't post their swings after a lesson. After because
Sure.
it's like, I mean, coaches follow that stuff, right? I mean, if we're trying
Yeah.
to help juniors get into college, I think it's a big thing, and they're all on there. It's all about eyeballs. So take us back to the beginning. I know a lot of people that follow you probably have heard your story, but I think it's an interesting one of how you got into golf, and then how that led to golf coaching. Because I mean, I think we have a similar, I guess, career path, in where we were a head professional for a short amount of time and then started teaching full time. So tell us that story.
Yes. So I was really cool as a kid. I was too short to get picked, and then I got into skateboarding a little bit, and then my dad always played golf and would bring me and my brother along, and I took to it pretty quickly, and then started to take it more seriously in middle school, and then in ninth grade is when I made the varsity team in Minnesota, Elk River High School. We were the best team in the state, and I was voted to be the sixth player on the best team in the state. So they really drug me along. For myself, my short game is how I got good and how I could start to lower my scores. So that's why it's always held a special place in my heart. And then from there, played 2 years in Iowa. Didn't really like that. Went to kind of a golf school, and then worked a few jobs that I really did not like, and was like, if I have to do this the rest of my life, I don't know if I can. And respect to everyone who works jobs they don't like, but I
What were
was
those jobs?
so I was working at a Target. So we would pack Target stores, like signage, and it was mandatory 55-hour weeks in a building with no windows. And it was the most mindless. I felt like such a waste. It felt such a waste doing that. But again, nothing wrong with supporting families and working. But for myself at the time, I said, I've just got to do something I like. And that's when I got into the golf business under Steve Fessler. He's one of the best pros in Minnesota. He's been a mentor of mine. Under his wing, was assistant pro there. Came down to 49er, was planning to just go back and forth as my brother got a job in Tucson at Tucson Medical Center. So I was planning to just go back and forth. And then the 49er hired me as head pro, did that for a bit. Now I teach, and I'm still here.
So how did the jump from head pro to full-time teacher happen?
I think it happens in a way. I get asked this a lot. And I've had a bunch of people shadow me, and how can I get to where you are? And it was like I would work in the shop. I'd kind of help run the shop like 5 days, teach one. And then you would notice, hey, I need more time. So then I'd go 4 days, teach two. And then you kind of start to wean some things off. And it's like, okay, 3 days, teach three. And you start to progressively work into that full-time role is how I did it, more than just, okay, I'm going to teach full time. It was more of the demand was calling me full-time teaching. Mm-hmm. And that was a great fit for me. I love people, love helping people. And that's more of what I enjoy doing than the operations side.
So your side hustle became your full-time job.
Sure. Yeah.
Basically, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. And you were able to stay at the same club, right? Like a lot of times that's like, all right, I'm going to go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting.
Yeah. 49ers been great to me. They've been very supportive of everything I do. It's been home for the last 17 years. So the people and the members there have been awesome.
So I know you teach everything, full swing, just like I do, and putting, but I think we sort of have our niches. So how did short game become your niche? Like for me, and I just a little backstory for me is I started sort of going down the rabbit hole with putting, and then now short game as well. So I'm interested to talk to you about a lot of the stuff that I've been working on, but people start coming to you just for that skill, right? So that's why I call myself a part-time putting coach. So like, what was it for you? Did you start to get players that just came to you just for that part of the game, and that's sort of how you evolved into what you're doing now?
Yeah, as mentioned, it's always I'll teach everything. My average lesson at the course for members, like teaching a 30 handicap how to make contact with a golf ball. It's kind of still the thing when I'm back here.
Welcome to the club.
Right. Which, in my opinion, being able to problem solve low skill, high handicap players is quite a bit more difficult than helping a tour player who essentially could do anything you ask them to at a pretty high level. So I think that's really helped my instruction as a whole. Now, the short game part, as mentioned, it's how my game got good. Also, for a long time, I've helped and fixed a lot of yippers over the years, so I feel like yips has been a specialty of mine. Yeah. Also, when Tiger hit the shot in 2019, he hit that high shot with a lot of spin at the Valspar. I reached out to like every coach on Instagram, and the only one who really took me serious was Chris Como. So we went down like a 2 to 3 year search with Ping on the high trajectory, high spinning shot. So I just get interested in some of these things, and I like problem solving and just figuring things out. So that led to Max Homa reaching out to me right before COVID. So he was a big part of kind of getting me out there.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you who was your first guy. I thought it was Van Florian, but it was
no, it would be Max. It would even go back to Don Pooley and Ronnie Black, if you know their champions tour players in Tucson.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm good friends with Ronnie and Don. Helped them a while back, and they saw success. Then, yeah, Max. I would say Max really put me on the map, and I have nothing but great things to say about Max. We're still friends to this day. He's probably the hardest worker I've ever seen personally. And people wouldn't realize at the time when he's on Twitter, we would like chip for 2 hours. He would look and tweet for 1 minute, and then we'd chip for 2 hours. Then he'd tweet for 1 minute. Then he'd hit balls for 4 hours. And they just think, they're like, get off your phone. I'm like, you guys don't even see what I'm seeing.
Are you guys still working here, or are you just sort of?
No. We worked for a couple of years, and then we stay in touch. He's a good friend, but just see him on the road. And yeah, I love the guy.
Yeah, that's awesome. So once you started sort of digging into the short game, and I'm trying to put this the correct way, you're almost like, because I know you're a really good player, and I've heard your story. You know, you qualified for PJ Tour events not long ago. I mean, you're still really, and you love to play, right? It's like you still like it. There's the passion for playing has not left you, which a lot of us, you know, as we get beat down, you know, teaching all day, it's tough. It's tough to keep your passion, right?
Sure. Totally.
So what I was going to ask you is like, how, aside from the mentors that you have learned from, you know, what has playing sort of taught you, I think, because I guess what I'm getting at is like tour players don't have it. They can't teach. They can't do what we do. You know what I'm saying? They can do the stuff. And I've heard you talk about that a lot. It's like, I've learned a lot from doing and just kind of figuring stuff out and tinkering. So talk about that a little bit. And also how, you know, you've learned from sort of other coaches of, you know, the information that you're teaching.
Yeah, I think I love tournament golf. Every round I play now is tournament. I don't care how you play with your friends. I don't care how you play when you're comfortable. I don't care about any of that. I care about tournament rounds when you have to sign a score, when you're uncomfortable. And I love that. So I do still enjoy playing. I enjoy learning and improving my game. I understand, the burnout. If, you know, you're at a course 12 hours a day, you just want to get home. I understand that. But improving my game has always been, and playing in tournaments, I believe has been an advantage, because when I do work with tour players, and again, I'm not on their level by any means, but you can start to understand that when you're on the 18th hole and you have a certain bunker shot and you're nervous, how, you know, we might look to hit a little bit more behind it with a little bit more speed because we're a little bit nervous. So we might widen our feet so we can adjust things, and I can tell them some things that I would recommend in situations. And usually they like those recommendations, just because there's, you know, by the book, but then there's, hey, this shot up and down to win an event. And you've got to have, I think having some skin in the game can help. It's not required by any means. Sure. If any coach makes any player better, that's the goal. But I have never found it to be a hindrance, as well as when I'll do a lot of short game competitions with my players, and will often do very well, that it can help. Not that you have to do anything to prove a point, but being able to demonstrate, being able to get hands-on and move the club certain ways through my ability to play or tinker around is definitely an advantage in my eyes.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I mean, it's definitely a compliment. I kind of fumbled around with that question, but
no, thank you.
Yeah, it's a huge compliment, because it's like you're like a Swiss Army knife, right? It's like you can go out and still play, but you still kind of work on the game. I don't know how you had the time to do it, but that's another. Just
at home. I'm just big at home training.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's another subject, but I mean, you know what I'm talking about. It's like, you know, sure. and you learn a lot from watching, right? It's like cool, and I'm still pretty good at demonstrating even without a lot of practice, and I can still hit most of the shots. But you've lived it. Like, I've never played the tour event, you know, I've played some high club level stuff, but I mean, it's not the same, and I get it. And I think that's a huge kudos to you for being able to kind of know, you know, you've walked inside the ropes, which is really cool.
Yeah. So you can, you know, somewhat understand how they feel a little, again, but by no means am I on that level, but I feel like being able to somewhat relate has helped.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I know a lot of times when I'm sort of making up drills to try to solve a problem, in a full swing or a short game lesson, and I'll get in there and try to do it because I want to and I'll tell
Yeah,
the student like I'm trying to feel what you're going to feel, even though
I
it's not
love
the
that.
same, right? It's
I
you
love
have
that.
to have some kind of awareness of like what are you actually
I'll,
giving the
I'll
player?
I'll do the same thing. I'll set up a drill and then I'm like, let me go in there. Let me see if
Yeah,
I'm actually being a fair coach. Like sometimes I'm
right.
like, I might set something up like, okay, that's just bad coaching on my part. Let's make those tolerances a little wider.
Yeah, and I'll tell them like I'm not going to give you something that I can't do on my own, right? So,
Sure. Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think they'll appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's good. So, all right. So, a student comes to you, right? Before we kind of get into the weeds with a lot of the, I got so many questions I've over
Great.
prepared as I always do. So we can go in a lot of different directions. So forgive me.
Let's get them all, baby.
Yeah. So how like a student comes to you and I love when students come to me and say, okay, describe your philosophy, right? And that's a big word, right? I mean, there's a lot of layers to that, or I usually call it like my framework. But you want a student that's sort of curious about like, what do you teach, right? Like, how would you describe your short game framework?
It's a great question because I get a lot of players who come to me because they know I could teach any style or method. So what it has eventually evolved into the short game for me is I've found that in short game you want to have a good ball first shot, and then in my opinion you want to have a shot where you use the ground. I've found when people struggle, even tour players, they have kind of one style that is maybe a mix and match of both, and the intentions are not clear enough, and generally they're not getting the results that they want. Now, I'm pretty flexible with a lot of the players that I've worked with. You'll notice a lot of them have different styles,
Mm-hmm.
just as you would notice the top short gamers historically. You can have different styles and be successful. So I do, when someone comes in for short game, I'm always interested in what their swing looks like, just so I can see what kind of movements are maybe within their DNA.
So what their full swing looks like, or are you talking about
A
just
little bit, yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
if
Now that's a
generally,
good question. Yeah.
yeah. So like yesterday, I had a guy, and I'm like, so you hit a draw in your full swing? I would guess. He's like, how'd you know? I'm like, well, that thing's a mile inside, and like, I mean, so you're
Right.
used to the
Yeah.
space to path. I would guess your putting has some of that. I would guess your swing has some of that. So it's just you kind of start to glean ideas, and if certain players have certain club faces in their swing, I'm also very careful in not getting a player's swing worse by chasing short games. So I've worked with some players that really hit the ball great, and at times their inabilities to slow the ball down around the greens is an issue, but I don't want that to bleed into their full swing and take away a superpower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm
I
very
understand that.
mindful and careful with suggestions because I don't want a PGA Tour player to have the best short game on the Corn Ferry Tour
Gotcha. But
and
don't
lose their
you
card.
think?
You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah. No, I totally get it because I've got a situation with one of my players that
No disrespect to the Corn Ferry Tour, but like
no, 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 no.
you can chase an
And I'm
area
just like
very
I want.
aggressively
Yeah,
and lose your superpower. And I wouldn't.
yeah.
I don't. Because I've been screwed up by so many coaches. That's another part of not intentionally. And no coach is trying to screw anyone up. But at times I've been told to do certain things without the logic provided and why I should do it and what I should see and what the testing should be. I just assumed every coach really knew what they were talking about, and it took me down some unique paths. So I've always made it a vow in my instruction, especially at a higher level. I would rather say nothing than potentially make a player worse, and usually that's not the case. But and that's why I also like teaching short game. Full swing, you can really drop off someone's career, and you can really make their career better. Short games, generally, I'm taking a player from an A to an A plus. I'm somewhat extra credit. If you look at strokes gained, the
Yeah.
potential over a year compared to putting and ball striking, it's going to be fairly on the minimal side, but it can matter exponentially depending, where they are in a tournament.
Yeah, you're talking about more tournament players, competitive players, tour players.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, but don't you think? I mean, they're because I've dealt with that a little bit because they're as far as the trying not to, we impart some pieces. And what that's is what you're talking about is like making sure you don't mix up the pieces with your
Yeah.
intention
Yeah.
of whether it's ball ground, ball first or ground first. And we'll get into that. But I think, would you agree that there are different movements in the short game stroke than there is in the full swing? And sometimes, I mean, you have to sort of explain that to the player and go, you need
Sure.
to adapt based on the environment or to have.
Yeah. Now, I mean, you'll describe it like, the same way you have your own putting stroke. Like it's not your golf swing. It's like we can break that down into the short game. It doesn't have to be your golf swing. As you've mentioned, there's a lot of great ball strikers and some I've worked with who, they have some amount of like up in their backswing and then they'll lower, rotate, side bend, all those things, which can work. And, look at Victor Hovland. It's extremely high level ball striking. You look at a lot of great ball strikers that do that.
Yeah.
And then because of the frame of time in the short game and the movements and torques on the club, that's generally a really bad fit for short game.
Yeah. So the example that I would bring up for my player, and you tell me if you've experienced this, is one of my tour players. I'm trying to get him to load and push up and get behind the ball in his full swing. With short game, I'm trying to get him to go forward, right? Trying to get his center of mass forward, in either a little bit in the backswing or in transition to get steeper, and then push up with the lead side and all this stuff. So a lot of times we find, and he even gives me this feedback. I'm not just making it up. He's like, yeah, sometimes I kind of get lost in the difference of how I'm moving, how my pivot moves in my little wedge swing to where I'm trying to hit a 7-iron. So I think that's where it can get a little bit muddy, I think, with the players and what you're working on. I remember when I was first started teaching some short game guys with just, they just come to me just for short game. And I always ask them the question, and I'll throw this back on you, is like, what are you working on in your full swing? So to make sure, like, is it a shape issue or what do you know, what's happening? So you don't get too base as far as like what they're working on with them.
Yeah, and I love when they're working on something in their swing that we would also need in their short.
Yes, that's when it's easier. Yeah.
Right? It's like, gosh, great, we can help. We can double down on this. This is the best case scenario. Yeah. But like you've mentioned with some of the movements, and golf is a game of many games. It's not this one swing for all. It's like there's so many games within this game of golf, and being able to load differently in a long bomb high draw driver compared to hitting a crisp 8-yard chip. But most players, if you obviously explain it well, they can understand why they wouldn't want to have those same movement patterns for sure.
Yeah, love it. All right, so let's dig into it a little bit as far as the tech and just let's nerd out a little bit here.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I heard several years ago was that sequence of, I hate to even call it, I hate to label it, right? It's just like a little swing, right? It's like chipping, pitching, all this stuff kind of gets a little bit confusing, I think, to a lot of students. Don't you agree, right? Sure. Yeah. So
there's just no uniform definitions.
Right. It's like everybody's like, what's the difference between chipping and pitching? Like, I don't know. It's like whatever. So we're just hitting a 30-yard wedge shot. So
exactly. I call them just short game shots.
There you go. Let's So for the rest of the conversation, let's just call them short game shots.
Short game shots.
There you go. So with the short game shots, the sequencing, I think, is very similar. I think there's a couple maybe little differences, but I know for sure because I've measured it on 3D that it's not reversed, and that was kind of going around a few years ago. Have you measured your own shots on 3D, and do you measure your players on 3D? And then talk a little bit about what you think the sequence should be.
Yeah, it's great. I think James Ridyard was maybe one who kind of chased that, which
Yeah.
I think James is an awesome coach. So I think he had some just really funny diagram, maybe a guy throwing a ball in a reverse sequence, and
Yeah.
and so I don't have any 3D myself. Now, this is where, again, when we do some amount of ball first movements, and I would equate that when we hit the ball clean, it's okay to have some amount of ball striking elements. Now, if I get mega ball strikers who need to somewhat feel that sequence to use some of the ground and some of that stuff, I don't mind that. Now, would that actually read to be the case in 3D? I'm not sure, because again,
Okay.
I wish I had gears. I wish I had.
Yeah, I didn't know with all your work with Ping that you'd.
Sure. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That would be a question if I were you, I would ask Ping, is like, just tell me what's happening. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
again, it's just interesting because, I mean, I'm good friends with James Ridyard, and
great.
I know, so he's been a big mentor of mine, short game wise, and so we've talked a lot about the order that things sort of happen.
Yeah.
In the downstroke, which I think has helped my coaching like immensely, and just understanding the different pieces. So I was just curious if you would.
Yeah, I'm not. I will bring it up. That's why I love Ping's been awesome to me. They're just golf nerds like me, and Eric and Marty and just everyone up there's Dr. Wood. They're just fantastic, and that's something I think I'll be up there this fall. So I would love to see what Enzo and those things. I know they have some. We did some stuff, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't.
They've got the cameras. I mean, and we're going to talk about the high spinning shot at some point too. But I mean, I think it'd be interesting to see. And I know a lot of people out there listening probably could chime in on that. I know what I've sort of found and how I sort of teach it. But
what do you use for 3D? Do you have gears?
I was using Sportsbox a little bit.
I know they don't have like short game. I was going to use them. I kept asking to develop like a short game thing for it.
Motion to Coach is really good. That's actually where I was I was thinking about bringing Motion to Coach in.
Oh, great.
But I just, and I don't use something on the daily, but it's more like what James has found. And, like I know Mayo's done a little bit of it. And they don't talk. I mean, James talks a lot more about it probably than Joe does, as far as just the sequence of it.
Sure.
And just knowing what I see, because again, 2D can kind of fool you a little bit, but
yeah, absolutely.
It's definitely, I think, helpful to get people to slow the ball down and do some cool stuff in the short game. What about force plates? Have you done much of your testing on force plates? Because I'm curious about how you teach, and it kind of goes right into the pivot stuff, as I call it.
Sure.
Using the ground, pressure and force applied with the short game shots, I think is important, especially like setup. And I have done a decent amount of that stuff with Smart to Move that I use. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, same. A lot of mine is just based on off 2D video. Mm-hmm. I don't have any force plates. Don't have 3D. I wish I did. The setup I have would be a little bit tricky for it, but I would love to get either Motion to Coach or one of those, as you mentioned, to better research. I definitely do feel and if you watch some of the better short gamers, if you just watch their feet. Yeah. Oftentimes people ask me if I hit, like my stock ball first chip, they ask me what I feel, and I say I feel it in my feet. Because if we get certain things to move, other things don't have to move. Conversely, if we don't move certain things, other things somewhat have to move. So I would agree that being able to use pressure in a helpful way, and to some amount with my knowledge, if I'm trying to hit the ball cleanly and trying to use the ground, it's not necessarily the exact same way.
So talk about the difference. Like, what do you mostly like? I look at like toe to heel, because you can see that in 2D, and in real time we can see if somebody's in their toes too much, and how that affects the way they move. So what are your differences, and how do you cue your players to get get their bodies to move a certain way?
Yeah, and that's why I love when people when I can get in person. I'm old school that way. I do some online lessons. I don't like it at all because when I can get someone in person and I can physically move the club
Yeah.
to help them feel it, it's just hard to describe that over video. And again, there's a lot of coaches that do it, and it's awesome. It's a super product to have, and I don't mind doing some of the online stuff after I've seen a student so we can refer to things that we've done. But I would say, like an example would be, if I'm trying to hit the ball cleanly, if I'm trying to get ball first, my low spot generally is going to be more forward in my opinion than if I'm trying to use the ground. So I don't need to necessarily have some of those same movements. And that's where at times I'll see people struggle, as I mentioned earlier, when they have a mix and match of ball first, ground first elements, and they're kind of hoping to hit it clean, and they're kind of shifting their weight, and they're kind of bringing in shaft lean, but they're kind of throwing it out. They're maybe trying to hit behind it, and it's just not clear enough of an intention. I've seen that with a lot of tour players who have helped clean up those intentions so that their ball first gets better and their ground first gets better, and they know what they're aiming for when they hit a shot.
Yeah, so get into specifics, right? Because that's a broad brush that you're kind of painting there. So like, all right, let's say ball first. Let's say we're hitting a stock low spinner, right?
Okay.
What we all like, I would call it just we call it a baseline short game shot.
Sure.
I didn't say the C word. it's a baseline short game shot, like 30 yards, whatever. Talk me through like, what are your setup cues? What do you like to see the club do, and what do you like to see the body do to kind of match the pieces up? Because what you're saying is people have an intent, and maybe are basically mixing up pieces for each style, and then we'll go to the other.
Yeah, sure. So for ball first, number one, I want people to stand in a way that works for them. I've had a bunch of tall players come to me who are told to get their feet close together, and I said, this is the worst possible fit for you because your arms are short at your reach, so we need to get you wider. They're like, oh, thank you, great. That cleaned them up. So there's a lot of fundamental things, and most general stuff's fine. Like I don't need someone too wide where they can't move.
Sure.
But I need someone to stand in a way that's most helpful. Now, generally, do you need to be super wide? No. Can your feet be relatively close? Yes. Right. So that would be first and foremost. For myself, when it comes to posture in putting in a short game, I don't mind a non-athletic posture. I don't believe this is a big athletic event. So you can somewhat have butt back, neck tilts. You don't need a massive knee flex. You don't need to feel like you're going to bench, squat 350 pounds. So generally that would keep your arms hanging below your shoulders. The handle wouldn't get too far away from you at that point. Now, if we are trying to hit ball first, I don't mind, of course, having shaft lean, having the ball back, having some, down and forward movements. Now, things you want to be careful of, and this is something that's often told but not often understood, is people say, hey, you should move up through the short game, which I would generally agree with. Yeah. But what happens is people have actually taught people to do certain ups, and those are measured movements that I've found for yips. When they have these ups in the backswing, if they moved up in the downswing, they're going to miss the ball. So a lot of yip movements are a way to get that club back to the ball. It's usually a terrible way, but it's a way. So all these late downs and movements are because they've programmed some ups, and that's something that, again, that's kind of its own thing. But yeah, I wouldn't mind. You can stay relatively level. Generally up to down is not a great consistent fit.
As far as like they're up their body, their head, and up body, moving up, down. Okay,
but it's the same thing. Certain retractions, certain ways of pulling the club off the arc, what the handle does, which not a lot of people research, that I've researched a lot. Handle height, certain retractions of body parts, pulling shoulders, so that we have to so there's certain things that we wouldn't mind keeping calm, but then being able to return low spot forward when it comes to like you've mentioned, I don't mind 10 to 15 degrees of shaft lean. I don't mind rotation. I don't mind keeping the wrist in a ball striking somewhat position. I don't mind using a little bit more body chest rotation for that when we're trying to get the handle more forward in that situation. And then conversely, if we're doing ground first, we don't need all those elements.
Yeah, well, I think let's stay with ball first, because I think that's the one that probably most people need.
Yeah, totally. It's the foundation of the short game.
100%, especially where I live and teach. We've got super grainy approaches, and like if you're hitting ball first, if you're hitting ground first, that's why everybody's putts. Okay, they suck.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, really, because
see it on tour. You see it on tour.
Yeah, I'm getting people to hit ball first most of the time at my facility, just because of the environment. And I get what you're saying. I think the piece that is often overlooked, and I talked with this about with Joe Mayo when he was on the show, is getting people steep enough, right? With some shaft lean, all these pieces. Again, it's like I've never seen anybody hit ball first, right bending, and then dumping the wrist angles. Right? It's not logical, right? Like you use your head. Is how do they get it out of the ground, right? It's like, how are we hitting? Like my guys are hitting somewhere between, I'm just saying, again, back to baseline stock. We're not talking about high shots, whatever.
Yeah.
They're hitting like 8 to 13 down. There's a range, but they're not taking a ton of divot because of what you're talking about. Like they're actually pushing up with their lower body on the lead side and rotating, getting the handle, which is something I think I'm huge about, like you said, up and left. Right. It's like, I think that's the piece that a lot of people, for the golfers out there actually listening, but the coaches is like, you got to pay attention to the direction that club is moving, and the height of the handle through the strike, I think is
exactly like you've mentioned. I've got my my golf club here.
Yes.
What you'll generally see with people is, and again, we want to put things in position where I can get this club and handle low enough so that eventually it can start working up. Right, it'd be somewhat similar in a golf swing, but when you see this handle and club unit getting pushed and forced down to get the club to hit the ball, and then forcing it through the earth, and then we see these violent tugs and shrugs to get it out of the earth instead of using our body in a way, lead shoulder, lead side, to move the handle up and out of the ground so that, again, as I'm doing that, this club head can swing down.
Yes.
That's exactly spot on.
Yeah. I think, the one thing that a lot of people get confused about when they talk about steeps and shallows is, the difference between like the shape of the swing, as you've alluded to before, like, guys, it's funny though. It's like you see a lot of players when they're full swing, sometimes they won't suck it inside. They'll take it outside too much, and then they get in the short game and they suck it way inside. And it's like, dude, just do what you just did in your full swing, right? It's like you see that mix, which is kind of interesting. But the shape of the swing versus, the bottom of the swing being shallow, right? And I think that has a lot to do with the wrist angles, getting dumped. So talk about ground first, contact, and I think the biggest question is like what situation would that be applied, right? Because I think it's obviously, like you talk about in some of your podcasts, is like type of grass, but just talk me through a situation where you're going, all right, you're talking to your player and you're going, we need to catch the ground. Now, is it really like that far behind the ball, or is it kind of under the ball as opposed to getting low point forward? I think that's where a lot of people get confused. Like, I don't think they're really hitting 2 inches behind the golf ball.
Yeah, and it depends on surfaces, right? So now this is what we're going to call this intention, because like as Ping has shown, like when you hit a crisp chip, you're actually hitting the ground before the ball. Well, it's when it's the intention, right? So it's not the discovery. When I'm trying to hit this ball clean, obviously, am I thinking, hey, I better hit a little bit behind it? No, I'm trying to hit it clean. Just like, and this is what I asked Dr. Wood. I forget what their numbers were, but when you hit a good 3-wood off the ground, like that club's always probably hitting the ground first. Like, but that's not your goal. I'm not trying to dump this thing necessarily into the ground. So we'll call it intention versus maybe measured reality.
There you go.
Now, where I would start using the ground, and this is where I get a lot of tour players that see me, is when I generally would need maximum stopping power. And this is the shots that you see me hit that launch 40 to 50 with still a ton of spin. Now, it is dependent on the lie, like you mentioned, because if there is a course, and this is where most people like to chip, right? Let's say I'm playing a course, it's 1/4 of an inch, beautiful fairway. Sure, my club could enter more way behind it, but if it's dormant Bermuda, like you'll see in icy, and it's firm, well, it can't be that far behind it.
Okay, that was my question, because I've heard you talk about having a tight lie and wanting to hit the ground first.
Yeah.
And like that didn't make sense to me because I feel like the club would bounce. Like that's when I thought you would have more, but like people love chipping out of the rough because it's like
Sure.
you got
Yeah,
all
exactly.
this pushing, right? Okay,
You know,
okay, that makes sense to me now. So continue.
and it depends on your bounce and your grind. So I can't take like a massive wide sole 14 degree and necessarily line it up the same way that I potentially could a 4-degree ground that way. Now I still use 10S. I use a 10S pin grind.
Yeah, it's a good mid bounce wedge.
Yeah, and again, I'm not necessarily trying to hit it at 0 shaft lean. There's going to be a couple degrees, but I'm not bringing in as much shaft lean. So I'm adding loft through the shaft, keeping the face necessarily less open. What I've found then is using ground first vertical dispersion versus a flop shot gets way tighter. So tour players really like that. That's something that, again, we worked with like Matt Wallace, top short gamer on tour. He wanted to learn ground first shot at the Zurich into the grain, which if you know a lot of the keys, you still can use. Now, is there some amount of risk depending on the amount of grain? Absolutely so. And is there some grain that you just absolutely cannot use it? Absolutely. But in certain situations, you can max out what I would consider no dig principles to attempt that shot. Now, again, there's always a risk. That's why if you're ever between, we're going ball first, and if it's not the appropriate shot, too bad. We're hitting ball first into the bank, getting it on the green, and recognizing that, because that's a shot I hear a lot. Hey, what do you do when you're short-sided? You got to go up 10 feet. It's into the grain. It's wet. It's like, I'm like, you make a bogey, man.
Yeah,
you make a bogey.
Yeah, don't make doubles.
No one's stuffing that shot all the time. Like they just think they bring you this equation. It's like, man, like let's be smart here. And that's kind of like what you mentioned. You'll see it on tour quite a bit, guys putting fairway woods, because they're smart enough to know that. And this is something I like my students to do is choose the shot that if you had to hit it 100 times, what do you think the best average is? Not the one you can get closest one time out of 100.
Yeah.
But if you had to hit it 100 times, what's the safest play? And then a lot of my tour players with their caddies they'll kind of, before a shot, they'll say, what's a good shot here? Like, in this position, what would be a great shot? And sometimes it's like 15 feet.
Yeah.
It's not always like, oh, let's find a way to get a tap in.
Yeah. Expectations big
Totally.
based on the data.
Totally.
Yeah. I mean,
based on the data. And then that's the tough thing with strokes gained is you could be in the fairway absolutely dead to a pin, and it's not going to necessarily read that the same way if you're in a fairway uphill to a middle. So that is some amount of it. That's why I like scrambling percentage is my favorite stat. Now, I don't always, again, I teach some putting on tour, but I love the ability to get up and down. And the number one scrambler on the PGA Tour this year is?
Was it? I don't know. The Scotty?
Best player on the best player on the
yeah,
70%. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So but the funny thing is I think he's at 70%.
I mean, he's the best ball striker, which is like, well, nobody can beat him.
Exactly. The tough thing though with scrambling is if you're at 70%, you're number one. I think if you're at like above 65, you're like top 7. And if you're at 55%, you're like almost the worst on tour. So it is these thin margins, but it's obviously getting the ball up and down when needed in major championships when everything's on the line.
Yeah, I mean, I have that conversation with my tour guys all the time. It's like when you're not in an event, you're not watching them play, they're not on TV. It's like, what's up with those stats? He's like, you don't even know how good I chipped it today because I was in like some just effed up places, right? Like strokes gain doesn't measure like the difficulty level, right, of what it is.
Exactly, and that's where now, a lot of my guys, for currently it's working well. They'll pay me to stay all week and watch every shot. We document and talk about every single shot.
That's so helpful.
If I believe exactly, it is because it's the same thing. I want to see what happens, what they do, their thought process on the course. So I'll get video. We'll talk through it. We'll talk about for a lot of my players, we're trying to make what I would consider as the simplest play. Again, that's a little bit of a bias of mine compared to maybe some other coaches, where some players have certain shots in mind, and I believe that they're choosing a harder shot than what's required.
Right.
So that would be a long-term thing. Again, and also their stats bear that they probably need to make some adjustments. So you can go over those shots because, you can see it on shot link, which a lot of the times when I'm texting the team, they're like, "Oh, it says he's way over here." I'm like, "No, he's like here."
Yeah, they're
So
wrong.
it's not.
Yeah, I
They're not
know. I
even
get
right,
that too. It's like I
right? So
wasn't
then
even
it's
there.
like,
Like the yardage is wrong. I
yeah.
was not even. I mean, it's so frustrating.
So it is. It's a value to actually see, and then if we need to after the round, work on some of those specific shots, and or if they're facing a few that they didn't hit well in a certain range, either after the round or the next day, we can attack it right away. So I understand, everyone's got different theories and principles, but I like to see my players, and it currently works in my schedule to see those players short game on the course so that we can warm up the next day appropriately,
Sure.
make a game plan to fix it right away. So that's definitely an advantage, and I think everyone would agree. Every coach would want to watch their players play to actually see what's occurring, actually see their thought process to help them improve.
So what I'm hearing you back to the ground first, ball first is ground first, and I would sort of equate this somewhat to steeps and shallows as well. As you're saying, ball first tends to be the lower driving, soft spinner, low spinner, and then the higher shots you're going to tend to probably hit maybe more under the ball, slightly behind the ball.
Yeah.
And I know we'll get to the high spinner. I know we're actually the club's like drop kicking up into the golf ball from the video we saw. I saw the one when I first saw that shot was a coach camp a couple of years ago when you did that video that you sent in, which was like super cool. And I was like, what the heck is going on? So what are some of the digging? I mean, give me a little more specifics on like technique as far as what you're telling your players. Like, hey, this is going to be slightly ground first. What changes compared to what we talked about before with ball first?
Sure. Yeah. So if in the simplest form, off of a ideal lie that is not scary or into the grain or anything like that, if I want to get I'll generally think about it as a simple way to gain stopping power. So if I want to get some loft while retaining some amount of spin, again, if the friction environment is there, and it's not always there, at that point, though, it might right up the face and get higher launch. But I tell people, anytime you have to hit the ball clean, we're going to hit the ball clean. I would consider using the ground when you want stopping power. So it's something that a lot of the players will recruit me for, even in majors, is it's kind of firm and tight-ish. They got to elevate it-ish, and they need some stop. And they don't necessarily want to hit these massive big flops in those situations, which you absolutely can do. And for some players to open the face and get clean contact on the ball is difficult. So when you can start using the ground to your advantage to get some, again, I would just generalize it under stopping power. It's a good skill and it's a good shot to have. So a lot of times I will add shots and skills to tour players' bags more than like wholesale change of technique. And a lot of times they'll say, hey, keep your technique, but let's just learn this shot and style. And they're like, oh, I actually really like that. I'm like, okay, great. So it's just knowing what skills and shots to add, because I've had a few players who just want a couple shots and they want to change anything. I'm like, that's great. We don't need to. So it's really dependent on what the player wants and needs. A lot of the players, though, that I work with are more towards the bottom of the short game, and they need some strong opinions and practice schedules to attack that and start to get their strokes to gain.
Yeah, but technique. You haven't talked about technique at all.
Oh, technique, sure. Yeah, here you go. My bad, dude. We got time. So, again, ball first. I'm going to lean the shaft. I'm going to get it up. It can be a little bit – the club face doesn't need to be open by any means. Nope. I can start to rotate. I can start to move. I can keep shaft lean. I've got some biases and some wrist angles that I like to see. I don't want that loft to change quickly.
Perfect.
So I can present loft more so. Now, if I wanted to use the ground, and there's multiple ways to use the ground, you could do it in certain arcs and certain styles. There's ones that I believe if you're moving the club so much, it can be more challenging. But if I
like what you're describing is more of a wide radius as opposed to a radius.
Yeah, exactly. So generally, off tight lies, the more wide and the more I move the handle away from the ball, it can be more challenging for low point. It absolutely
like Jason
can be.
Day type of.
Sure, yeah, Jason Day, Steve Stricker. It absolutely can work. It is kind of my stock style, but when I'm trying to use the ground, I'm going to have a more neutral shaft. I'm going to have the face pretty square to 1 to 2 degrees open, and I'm going to let the club head swing more with my hands. I
So
don't
overtaking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't need to drive my body forward. I don't need rotation to pull the handle more forward.
Okay.
I can start to let the club head swing with my hands to somewhat line it up, to somewhat get the heel off the ground, to somewhat interact with no dig way. So you could say, again, ball first would be more ball striking. I can keep shaft lean, rotate, get the handle forward. That's all fine. And then ground first would be what I would call the most short gamey way. It would be the worst way to hit a golf ball, right? It would go high, soft, spinny, slow. All the things we would never want for a ball striker, where I can start to swing the club head, some amount line up the shaft, hit the ground, and not be too concerned that it's going to be a death trap as long as my arc's not going too deep through the ground, for sure.
Gotcha. So when you're working with your guys, I've seen, because I've watched so many of your videos, you're measuring with the quad, right?
Yep.
I don't think you've got TrackMan out there, but
no.
So what are some of the, like, take the listeners through, because I obviously did this with Joe, because we're kind of on that same wavelength of like what we like to see with the low shots and then your higher spinny shots. Like, what are some of the numbers that you're seeing?
And this is where I think everyone still has different definitions. So I would consider a high shot with high spin, like it's got to be above 40 degrees launch. And some people would say that 35 degrees launch is a high shot. So I think everyone still has different.
Yeah.
Again, there's no clear any of that. So if we're looking for a high spinning, shot that stops quickly, if we're going at about 15 yards, it can launch around 40. Spin can still be around 55 to potentially 6, depending on ball and turf conditions.
Sure.
So it can launch. And again, the spin loft here, and this is something we measured at Ping, the spin loft for some of these shots can be up in the 70s to potentially 80s. Now that's, you better have a friction environment, and it's not always going to be guaranteed. That's why I would agree with Joe that living in that 55-degree range gives you some margin both ways. So that's a safe place to live in the spin loft equation. But when you are starting to work on that higher end of spin loft, again, you need to have an environment where it potentially can work. But with ground first shots, if it does, what I've found and what my players have found is if it does accidentally launch and doesn't get friction, it'll replace the spin for launch, and the shot will still be of a quality shot. So yes, for a low spinning shot, I think Joe's spot on. Like with those numbers, I don't think anyone would disagree that that's a bad shot to have. But then it depends on the intention and what we want for stopping power in those situations. Now, in my belief, when I'm hitting a low running chip, I'm trying to remove spin. I'm always trying to remove spin.
Now, that's interesting.
A lot of my
because my guys are hitting it low, but they're catching a lot of spin.
Yep.
With contact, and then also the vertical gearing and stuff that happens with low toe strikes or whatever, but they're still getting upwards of over 5,000.
Yes. So I'm trying to
2 hops.
Yeah, exactly. But at times, if you hit that into a grain and it really catches on the first one and you land it low, now you're at a disadvantage. Mm-hmm. So now it's depending on the situation. It's not a bad shot. It's by no means. But I've had players find success as they choose lower lofted shots to bring down the spin loft, to start to remove spin, to start to get some predictability in rollout. Now, it's not for everyone. You don't have to do
just another option. Yeah, I get it.
It's another option, especially when it's like grainy with where you land it. Because if you do hit that massive spinning one and it lands into a slope, and would go back to talking about choosing difficult shots. And with a player I work with, he would only hit low spinning 60s. And he'd have to land them in these certain places that I thought he had to be overly precise. And then even if he was as precise as was almost too difficult to be required, it might really check there with that amount of spin.
Yeah, I get it.
We can start to remove some of that spin, land it shorter of that slope, and roll it up the slope. And that player right now, he's used gap wedge, I believe, 20 times on tour. And he never wanted to use it. And he's 20 for 20 up and down. It is statistically incredible. It's almost a joke. If they have to get up and down, they'll use 50, and that's in bunkers. That's in again, that's a little bit more old school thinking in my part. It's not required. It's a bias I have based on what I've seen. I think it's a good skill to have, the same way I think a low launching, sub 30, high spinning 60 is a great skill to have.
Yeah, I mean, it's always situational. I get it. Like it,
Yeah.
and that's where I think me and Joe, not to bring him up so many times, but
I love
we
Joe. No, we both
get,
love Joe.
no, I know. I'm just saying and we've talked, me and Joe have talked about it, is like we get kind of put in a box of like, oh, you just teach slow spinning shots. I'm like, no, that's just a baseline shot. And then we've got elevations of,
Yeah.
we teach you how to hit the high ones and the, all the stuff in between. But it's like, you have to have, and I've heard you talk about, and I love your philosophy, like, learn how to hit the easy shots, right? It's like just the basic shots. Like, quit worrying about the fancy ones where you got to like, carry a bunker and stop it. Like,
Yeah.
when we're talking more higher handicaps, but even our good players, it's like, dude, learn how to. And I think it simplifies the short game, in my opinion, because you don't have 12 different decisions to make. It's like it's only a couple.
It is, and if you, again, and kind of working with a Matt Wallace, and if you watch like a Steve Stricker, and some players, it's funny. I see a lot of players, and I'll ask a lot. I mean, I'm a golf nerd, so I'll just talk to and ask a lot of these great short gamers, and they just like they wear out their shot with precision more than like having this multitude of shots. And I think we both agree, if someone comes to us and they're like, hey, I really got to get this flop shot, I have it like 8 times around, I need it. I'm like, we got to teach you how to not get there, buddy, because
that's right.
In those situations, like no one's really gaining strokes. You have to gain strokes, in my opinion, on the easy and kind of medium shots.
Absolutely.
When you have room. No one's gaining. And the worst thing you could almost do is, if you're in that situation, is try to gain a shot, and now you make a double bogey or even triple, and you throw away your round. And I wouldn't even say that's an execution error. I would say that's a management error at that point.
Yeah, I agree. It's like when I'm big on stats like you are, and it's people come to me like, I need a fairway bunker lesson. I'm like, really? I mean, like, how many times are we, you get a couple here and there, but it's like, we need, let's break down your stats. Like, we're losing a lot of strokes in other areas, and like, don't spend time where, it's not really going to elevate or move the needle.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. So, all right. So talk about your research, with the high spinning shot, and like kind of go into detail of like how it came about, talk about, Como and
awesome,
and how that all came about.
Yeah, I believe it was the 2019 Valspar. It's this guy, I think his name was like Brett E. Benjamin, posted this video of Tiger hitting this shot that launches super high, and it spins back. And I don't know, it's 20, 30-ish, or I don't know the exact number. But I saw that, and I was like, what is that? And again, I messaged a lot of short game coaches on Instagram, and they're like, oh, it's easy with his stuff, and it's just the grain on the green. It's just this, and it's just this. And then I messaged Chris Como, and he's like, I feel the same way. Like, this is unique. This is a unicorn. This is not common. And I think Chris at the time said he's seen Phil do it, Tommy Armour do it, Tiger do it. And we're just like, okay, let's try and figure this out. So me and Chris kind of bumped heads, and he had some theories and on what was occurring. And again, but Chris and Ping people, they're the smart ones. I'll be the test dummy. I'll just try and figure it out and let them tell you why it's happening. So that ended up being a 1 to 2 year, somewhat of a search for being able to hit the shot that flies. I would quantify it as it's got to be 48 degrees and above. It can be 50 and above. That's really on the other side of the Spinloft Mountain.
Yeah, we're talking way up in the air.
Smash factor is extremely low. It is a high risk, low reward shot, but on social media it looks awesome. Right? But it is, because people will be like, hey, well, teach me how to hit that one. I'm like, you will never need this shot. Like, and I think I've tried it maybe 1 or 2 times in tournaments, but I said the scenario would be is if I had to hole it to tie the hole in match play. Like, whatever happened after that, it would be a non-requirement because it is such a high risk shot. So we I started to be able to hit it. I kind of figured it out in my backyard.
So what was like talk through your technique and then
Sure.
how the study
Yeah,
happened.
yeah, and this is so I've got a lot of quad data on it, and this is where you are using the ground to redirect the angle of attack, and we're hitting positive angle of attack.
Yeah, it's bouncing up into the ball, right?
Correct, and you need to, you must have and thankfully the course by my house where I live has the exact situation that's required, where it's kind of firm underneath. The ball is sitting up on pretty nice fairway grass, where you can utilize that ground, redirect, move the impact point on the face very high, and get this ball to launch high while retaining quite a bit of spin. It's not going to have more spin. It's just that the launch and landing angle comes in quite steep to where it can launch 11 yards, 12 yards, and spin backwards.
Yeah, that's the thing. But for the listeners, like, the reason why this was so cool is kind of what we were talking about before. We'd always hit down more, take loft away,
sure,
hit that low one that spins a ton.
Yep.
So we've never been able to hit the opposite, which that's like the default, as I would call it, is like hit it high and like stop it with trajectory.
Sure.
But you don't get ones that spin back like yours do. And
exactly.
It's sick.
It is very dirty. It is it feels so incredible to hit. It is, because when I'll practice at the course, I'll have people just come and stop and watch. I've had people when I practice it, request a video, and I'll hit it. And it's very much a unicorn. It is again, this is where, if you remember that Rory shot, and this is kind of up for debate. That Rory shot at the Ryder Cup. Now, again, that's not launching. That is not.
No, launching. that was much lower. That was more like a mid launch.
That was more midish. But this is again, I think everyone would have their own opinions on it. I've got my opinions on it. But we're talking, the Tiger shots. Tiger's hit it. Because I have all the videos on my phone. I'm a sicko. He hit it at the Valspar. He hit it at the Zozo Clinic in front of the people before he won, when he won the Zozo last. He's attempted it a couple times at Augusta, and you can tell that sometimes it hasn't quite came off. He did hit it at Bay Hill. He hit it at Bay Hill to a front right pin. It was wild. I posted the video, and then I had someone from the crowd send me the face on.
Oh my gosh!
Because I knew it was crazy. Because like this pin, no one could stop it, and he hit this high soft one with spin. Now, when I do that shot, I use the Tiger ball. And you have to have a fresh wedge. You have to maximize.
I was going to say, there's got to be like maximum. Like talk about friction and what gets in the way of friction.
Yeah, totally.
Causes spin, right? And how you teach spin classes, I think, is really really cool.
Yeah, I do. So, and this is what people don't realize, and I think the audience, and again between me and you, but I think the audience would be good to hear this. What people don't realize is when we go to a tour event, they generally have new wedges, fresh balls, and they have turf that is just begging for spin.
Perfect. Yeah.
Just absolutely no interference, not super wet. And what we'll find kind of at most courses for most people is the grass in the fairway is too tall. Yeah. It's not cut tight enough at most, municipal public facilities.
Right.
Where you will always catch interference, and you cannot get spin for the shots that you want to get spin. So they often think that they are so far away from being able to spin a ball. And oftentimes the sad part of it is they're maybe not using a tour quality ball, which I don't blame people. That's fine. They don't have the tour quality conditions. They don't have tour newness of wedge in those situations to really guarantee max spin. Now, this is where I always challenge people. And this is, like you mentioned, when I teach spin clinics, because just spinning the ball is flat out fun. And when you get these 30 handicap women and men just hitting it and spinning it back, it's just fun. Now, I tell people, you can see how much spin you can get in a friction environment. Just tee the ball up, a half an inch or something, and just hit it clean. And you can almost, in that high of a friction environment, you can almost do anything you want, and that's about as much friction as you'll get.
It's also teaching them to control the arc height, right? I mean,
sure,
that's one of Ridyard's old drills is teeing up a ball just, where the top of the tee is barely above the ground.
Sure,
it's
and huge.
Yeah.
I'll have people tee it up half an inch. Again, this is
so
this
cool.
is a 30 handicap player who a quarter of an inch is still too low. So I need this thing. I need this thing. T-ball. We're thinking baseball. I need them to just make sure it gets on the face somewhere.
Yeah.
So for a lot of those people, but being hitting a ball off a tee where it's a pure friction environment, and then I'll simply equate it to, table tennis. I believe golf is the smallest racket sport. It's, got the smallest ball to racket ratio, which is a challenge. It's like 2 balls fit on the face compared to a tennis racket. But I tell them, hey, if I wanted to somewhat speed a ball up, I would think of kind of this forehand draw shot, which, would tend to, and again, it's going to have some spin still for sure based on friction. But if I wanted to try to stop it more, I would consider more of this drop shot, some amount of slice, some amount of cut across.
Yeah.
If you've played pickleball, tennis, ping pong.
And that's what, going back to what we were talking about with swing shape, like it's definitely more cut bias.
Sure. Yes.
If you're trying to hit like a high or even a low spinner, a lot of times, depending on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It can help stretch the spin loft compared to, a draw in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
And again, could you overstretch spin loft? Absolutely, you can. But to try to, I tell people, also when you're on a tee and if you watch all the players around the greens who do get it to stop, it'll always check and spin right.
Mm-hmm.
Check and spin right. So there's some amount of fade elements in that, like you've mentioned. I tell people, and again, you can do it incorrect, but it would be, and again, would a super wide fade still spin? Yes, but I'm trying to add some speed and trying to, in theory,
a little more radial.
Yeah, totally. In theory, cut the legs out from under it. Now, does the ball care what your intention is? No, it cares about impact.
Sure.
But to some extent, I'm trying to add some fade speed at the right time, and I have found that players off of the tee, as they're allowed to explore, because I like to work from success into harder elements instead of just trying to have them spin it off the ground. We need to see them spin it off the easiest environment. Because I tell people, if you can't spin it off the tee, you ain't got no chance spinning this anywhere else.
That's right.
So we've got to try to get some of those elements off the tee, and then we would move it onto like a fake mat.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where we can get a lot of spin as well. So that will then translate to some of the amount of ground or something in the way. And then we would work off like a perfect situation lie to recap that. So it'd be moving from the most friction environment, tee, mat, and then to some amount lower friction environment off of a great lie off the ground.
That's a lot of premium golf balls you got to get for a clinic.
Absolutely. It is. Thankfully, and that's where Titleist has been great to me. And all the balls I use after tournaments, I have this shag bag, and they go into my teaching bag and clinic bag, which is great. Yes. And then, but again, like we talked about, you can buy some part of the spin equation. You can purchase it. And some people with a top flight ball and a 10-year-old wedge with no grooves and it's just gonna slip every time.
There's just grooves that are wore out, and they're like, I can't spin it, and they're using a rock golf ball, and no chance out of the gate. All right, so talk about practice a little bit, right? So you've given your student a lesson, or your players a lesson. Let's just talk about average golfers. Because what we're teaching most of the day is like, what are some of the recommendations that you give them when they say, okay, now how do I go work on this? Whether it's block, there's obviously some block practice and some random practice, and then share some of your drills that you like them to do for measurement.
So the key would be, and this is something I've found, it's generally technique first. So it's generally, if they can't contact the ball consistently how they want, for us to work on distance control, work on all these situations, it doesn't matter so much.
Right.
Also, anyone who's not contacting the ball like they would want often, I don't have to ask them if they're good at distance control. I know they suck. Like, they're never getting anything consistent coming out the cannon. So if it is some amount of technique drills, right, if we wanted to get the ball cleaner, there's the strike wedge. You can use a towel. You can use alignment sticks. You can use, sticks with plane to help that. So there would be some amount of technique training involved. And then what I've found for any players is then something that's not often talked about or coached is if I hit a chip and I hit it great and it goes 15 feet past, what's the problem?
Probably the
touch or precision,
touch.
right?
Yeah, and that's my question. Yeah, touch
because that's
is
the
the
thing.
hardest thing. It's like
but what
putting.
happens in that scenario is often someone will hit a great chip, it goes 15 feet by, and they're like, "Oh, I suck at chipping." It's like, no, your precision sucks.
Right.
Like that was a great shot. And then I'll tell someone like on my lesson team, I'm like, that was a great shot. That ball should have always went that far. It looked like it was gonna go that far. That's not where the pin is, but it looked great. Way to go.
That's how long the swing was, and
exactly.
the strike was good, and that's exactly where it should go.
So that's where it would lead into a drill I created called the 24 ball drill. It's an area where I believe players need to gain strokes. All my tour players do it religiously. It's essentially targets in its only landing spot. Now this is the caveat here, and I tell people, and especially my kids, they love this. I say, you're going to the Arizona State Fair, you got your girl by your side. There's this game where you can chip balls into buckets to win her the big teddy bear, and you suck at it. You're the problem, man. Even if you don't pick landing spot, you are the problem. So even if players don't pick a landing spot, because I don't mind doing whatever works. Even if players don't pick a landing spot, the way I've measured it is that I've never seen a great short gamer statistically be bad at this drill, and I've never seen a bad short gamer statistically be great at this drill. And what it is, it's 6 targets from 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, and 15 yards.
How far off the green?
So
how far back?
Yeah, the great thing with it is I like doing it off of a green. I like doing it in fairway with no green. Because
I see.
Because this is what
So from the golf ball, your first target is 5?
Yep, 5 steps,
gotcha,
7 steps. And the reason I don't like the green, and I don't mind the green, but the reason I would do it away from the green is, in my opinion, your job in chipping is to get, the contact and trajectory you want and land the ball where you want. Because after that, it's a putt.
Yeah.
And there's times where I have hit a great chip right where I landed it. I could not have chipped it better. It got a bad kick, and it kicked past, and I would have changed nothing. I got a bad kick. You can start to quantify if your chip is doing its job, and that's what I would say. If you can get the contact you want, land the ball where you want, that's your chipping's job. Now, you might have misread it. You might have got a bad break. You might have had slower greens than you have thought, and you need to adjust. But you can start to identify why a shot was good or bad. And this is a simple drill. You would essentially go through 4 rounds of 6 shots. So you have, 6 targets, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15. You would hit a stock ball first chip and try to land it on the target. I've got on my Instagram, I've got the 10-minute video talking about it, but essentially you would want to land these golf shots within a half club to about the first 4 and about a club width to the second 2. And
I was going to say, what's the measurement? Going to say, what's a good measurement? Okay.
Gotcha. Yeah, I would say it goes, if we work up from 5, it would go half club, 2/3 club, 3/4 club, 1 club, club and a quarter, club and a half is what I found for reasonable dispersion. But a lot of the college teams, they just say, half club to the first 4, club to the second 2, and then you count your scores. You score it. And tour players, I like to do 20 out of 24. And it will just let you know if you're precise enough. And it's a great, simple way to practice. It's a no-harm drill. You can't practice it and get worse. I've only seen people and even tour players really improve from it as they have a simple focus in, when you're trying to hit, if the pin's 8 yards away and I've got to land this ball 5 yards in front of me, well, if I chip it 8 yards and land it at the hole, like that's just not precise. So you can work on precision so that your technique can contact the ball well, but now you're precise enough to get the distance controlled for turning a 3 into a 2, for making pars when you could have made bogeys.
Yeah, what I also love about that, it's kind of like stuff that I do with putting, is it forces them to actually watch very intently where the ball lands.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, how many times have you, guy hits a short game shot and it doesn't end up where he wants it to, and he can't tell you where the ball landed.
Yeah, and that's why I like doing it away from a green.
There you go.
Because you have one solo task.
Right.
And I don't mind doing it at a green, but I like when it's just such a sole focus on, okay, I got to contact it well, land it well. And yeah, it allows people to see. I had a top LPGA player who everyone lauded her short game. She came in and I tested her and I said, this is the worst performance I've ever seen by a good player like you. And she said, thank you, because everyone says my technique's great. I'm like, yeah, your touch and precision is the worst I've ever seen. Technique's awesome.
But you just need to know the truth, right?
She was thankful because it's like, okay, you can train that, but everyone, said her short game was so good, yet the stats were so bad. So it was just a precision thing. So she was very thankful. But I said it in a nicer way that
yeah, sure.
But it's like, wow, this is very low testing. Like that's why you're never getting up and down, is you're not precise enough.
Are you comfortable talking about any of your tour guys?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a couple. Like who do you think has the best short game that you teach?
And then, so statistically,
what makes them great and sort of any details.
So I'd say my main two guys would be Eric Van Rooyen and Michael Thorbjornsen, are the two I work with. I've helped about 12 guys on the PGA Tour. I got a couple guys on Live, a bunch of Korn Ferry, a bunch of D1 guys and girls. I would say Matt Wallace, statistically, is the best short gamer. We did some work at the Zurich because his stock shot is incredible, and he just wanted to learn one skill. And that's where a lot of these players, again, they don't need to, short game coaches to some extent, we're not really needed for a long time if I can give my players full understanding in the toolbox so that they don't need me. I don't want them to need me forever. So he would be statistically one of the best. Christian Bezadenhout, I've helped a little bit earlier in this year. Some of the best touch I've ever seen. And he just, again, same thing. He wanted to work on some shots and skills. Eric Van Rooyen is one of my favorite humans on the planet. So
did you guys meet because of the Minnesota connection, or how was that?
Yeah, so that I knew his caddy.
Yeah, I've met his caddy. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, Alex
awesome
is great.
guy.
He's such a great guy. He's so cool. So we met. He worked in our section, and I got a funny story about him. I won't share it though.
Yeah.
When I first played with him, because he hits it great. Guy bobs it. I won't say it for a second. Absolute bomber, great dude. So I always follow Gopher players. It was the same thing. Like Eric Van Rooyen, at Minnesota, I didn't really know who he was. He just kept getting better and kept working, and he's 35 now, and he's just, I think he turned pro at 26, 27 on the Sunshine Tour. Like, he just kept getting better. That's what's so cool about the sport is you see these young kids who are all-stars kind of lose it, and you see these old guys, like the Scott Perrells and Stephen Alkers of the world. I love that you can have your prime at any time, and I love that great golf is just great golf. And so Eric reached out almost about a year ago. I think we've been working, and we did some work. And in my opinion, same thing. We had to clean up his ball first and ground first technique. He had to have some good ways to practice. And I think first event out in Utah, gained like 3 or 4 shots, finished top 5 short game. So he's a player that'll do exactly what you want him to ask. Whatever you ask him to do, he would do. And with Thor, we've been working, I think, since the start of kind of the midsummer, and I'll see him coming up, and I'll be with him at Jacksonville. And I saw it in Napa. This kid is unbelievable at hitting a golf ball, and him and his dad is, in my opinion, done some of the best coaching I've ever seen. With his swing, he's an absolute machine. They have their own verbiage. They have their own method. He's been his only coach. They're never tinkering. They're working on the same things, and this kid hits it so good. So for him, it's kind of some of the same things. Is he'll have certain movements that he does in his swing that don't always help his short game. So we're working on precision, working on some ball first, ground first, working on some bunker shots, working on ways to practice and train, so that the few times that he has to hit a chip, so often I'll be out there at a practice round, and like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, the short game coach. You're like, he hasn't chipped for 9 holes. I'm like, I know, I'm the most pointless guy of all time. But it's really helping just him maximize and his caddy JJ is fantastic as well. But maximizing, some putting and some short game and some wedge play, because, I mean, 175 out. This kid is, I mean, in my opinion, he's a top 5 ball hitter on the planet. It is unbelievable. So just trying to help maximize his game, and again, do it in a way that doesn't interfere with certain ways that he moves in his full swing. Because he'll kind of tilt, kind of move off it. He's got a beautiful power, soft draw. He's pretty neutral now, but soft draw swing that just is on repeat. And just learning some shots and skills, learning, different ways to slow the ball down, different situations, somewhat choosing simpler plays. He's a player that's only used 60, and he's only done certain things. And in my belief, and again, great player, but in college, he didn't need to have all these shots or skills to win, because he just would absolutely ball strike these kids to death. So he didn't really need to have it. But at this level, at the tour level, that's where you got to have a little bit more in the toolbox.
Yeah, he definitely looked. I was watching your Instagram, the one you got pinned. Everybody should go check it out. Like it was pretty sick, the demonstration he was giving.
He's such a great kid. It
was cool. He was like moving the ball around a little bit. It looked like the ball would move forward, move back a little. Yeah. Definitely got more vertical, more steeper probably.
Yep.
And like you said, kind of probably a little bit against his full swing tendencies.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
And the bunker shots were pretty sick. That was one thing that I was going to ask you, because this is something I started doing with some of my guys, is having them hit short game shots out of the bunker to like develop some low point control.
Love it.
And I saw you doing that. I think was it with Michael, I think maybe, or it was with another. It was in one of your videos, and I was like, that's so cool.
Yep. I'll do that with a lot of players, right? And I do like environmental learning. I like the same way that, Sevi would be able to hit high soft bunker shots with a 3-iron out of bunkers. He's, when needed, when required, learning to put loft on the club. So with a lot of, my players who would need that, like to train with the 9-iron or to train with the pitching wedge or 8-iron out of bunkers. And then it allows for some freedom. It's like you can have fun, you can tinker around. It does, short game is so great because you can be this artist and you can have all these different shots. It doesn't have to be one way. I don't mind, stock shotting a course to death like Steve Stricker would do, but kind of being able to play around and tinker and, again, be in an environment to learn. And it's the same thing, like you mentioned. If I have a good lie in a bunker and I'm trying to hit ball first, well, you're going to know where you're entering, and you're going to know where your contact is, because the environment is really giving you great feedback. Whereas, the ball in a fairway, it's half an inch cut, ball sitting up, you can be a little bit off. And then when you get to a tight lie, like I get a lot of players, I love members at the club, they're at great courses in the Midwest, lush, beautiful, awesome. And they come down to, to Tucson and it's dirt tight. Like it don't work the same. So you've got to be.
You got to come to Colleton. It's like, it's the hardest place to hit short game shots ever.
Great. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And I'm sure you have maybe members at different clubs and like, my short game was great at home. I don't know why it's so bad down here. And you're like, I know exactly why it's bad down here. This terrain is much more challenging.
So tough. Yeah. And that kind of leads me into bunkers. Like that drill is not really for bunkers. It's more about low point and depth control.
I
mean, I encourage anybody that's got availability to hit just 40, 50 yard shots out of a bunker. It's going to help every part of your game.
Totally.
I mean,
totally.
If you can control the low point, it's going to be, like you said, now you've got options. You can explore different things.
But it's a great test, right? It's because so often people don't get tested enough. They practice in a way that is so non-reflective of the way they play, and they wonder why it doesn't translate. They're never testing themselves. They're never doing anything to put stress on themselves. And then when they get to a stressful situation, they're like, I just need to go practice more. No, you need more quality practice. Oftentimes I'm getting people to practice less with more quality rather than just mindless practice, which I don't mind, but it's not going to help them score better in events. I think you'd agree.
For sure. Yeah. So go through your bunker sort of technique and how you teach. Let's just say average golf. Let's talk about member
Yeah,
golfers.
great.
And then I want to run something by you that I've been basically layering into my bunker
Cool.
classes. That's really, really helped. I'm talking about the average golfers, I think, because
Yeah.
they get so much bad information and things that they're trying to do. And then, obviously it's a skill problem
Totally.
as well. But
Totally.
talk to me about that.
Yeah, and I think again, we'll talk an average golfer. We'll say like 20-ish handicap, and what you'll see is, you can tell who's read the golf magazines, and they corkscrew the face wide open, and they corkscrew their body this way, and they corkscrew and they're so contorted at setup. For the average person, I'm just like, let's stand square, and honestly, let's start with the face square. Let's start square and square, because our goal in the bunker is we know we just have to, we don't want to hit it clean. We want some amount hit behind the ball. I'll generally say in Tucson about a ball width behind the ball. So we'll draw an entry point. We'll draw a line perpendicular to the target. And it's like, okay, the skill we need to get good at is being able to enter, near this place a lot. Enter on it or fractionally behind it. So in that situation, there's different stances and everything, but I'll have people generally have a little bit more lead knee flex. They can be a little bit wider. They can somewhat set base into their lead side. I don't mind generally having a little bit more wrist set. It doesn't need to be this massive turn. We don't need to get this club low and around and behind us. And it can be some amount of this wrist set without a lot of handle travel to help us hit entry point. And we start small and we start square and we start hitting the line. You can either draw a line or you can kind of draw these dollar bills where it's like the entry point ball and then the exit point, if you would, so they can just see some amount of sand they're trying to hit.
Yeah.
And get good at that skill. And then,
let me
then we
stop
start
here just real quick there. Yeah. So like the dollar bill thing, because I think that can get confusing. And I know you're alluding to this, but more of the dollar bill is still in front of the golf ball than behind the ball.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's where a lot of people get confused. It's like, I'm sorry,
totally right. And then the reason I use that too is because I'm sure you'll see it for the average player. The reason I like a line, but again, you can start your club here and hit here on the line. So I like some amount of the club width, because oftentimes I'll see it with average players. I'm sure you will too. If here's where we're trying to hit, well, they'll bring that club and they'll hit fine on the entry, but it's past. It would be a shank to some extent.
Oh yeah, to the outside, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
I like squares, you could call it, more than the dollar bill theory, just to see entry point, but then also the outer extremes of the club where it's returning in space. So
sure.
that's more the goal. And yes, the ball would not be in the center of the dollar bill. It would be closer to where we enter, and then there's more sand past that. Absolutely.
There you go. Yeah, I love it. So here's, like, I think from what we've probably both seen, if we look at common errors, right? And we say, okay, I would say the majority of our member golfers are shooting too far behind the ball, right? And you go into like whatever those pieces are, whether they get too much weight on their backside, they're not getting into their forward leg, and there has to be a little bit of shaft lean, I think, in the bunker. Right?
Absolutely.
So, and this is where I think a lot, for the average golfers out there, the difference between that and tour players, because tour players appear to be sort of having a lot of overtaking, but it's not as much as you think, and it's not as early as you think, because they already have a ton of shaft lean in their forward swing. Okay, so when you start telling somebody that's already dumping their wrist angles, that is, and it makes it even worse, and then they start hitting way behind it. So, can you hear me okay? Looks like my network.
I can. Sorry. Yes. Yeah. Mine. I'm good.
Yeah, they're getting a couple little error messages. No big deal.
Sorry, that's probably my end.
Yeah. So what I've been telling people, because again, it's like based on what you see the player doing. Let's say they're bottoming out too early, is because they, like you said, they start getting open. They start swinging more from the outside, and their golf swing is already out to in. So now it's even more out to in, and they start shanking it, or they hit more behind it. So I just basically tell them, all right, this is just a full swing with your setup cues. I'm 100% on that wider lead knee flex, upper body tilted like towards target. And I say, I just want you to hit this golf ball, but I just want you to hit lower than the golf ball, right? It's like, and show
Great.
them that like, it's actually, because half the time, if you told them to hit the golf ball first in the bunker, they couldn't do it anyways. Usually comes out perfect, right?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like, right. So it's like, but it just changes the intention. And I'll get people like look in front of the golf ball and hit it, and it's perfect, right? But
Yeah, love
again,
that.
it depends on the players. But I've like, and they're like, oh wow, I've never heard it like that before. I'm like, it just simplifies all this other crap that you probably don't need to do. And if the
Correct.
ball is too far forward, right? I know tour players can play the
That all
ball
the time.
up,
Yeah, I
right?
see that. I see the ball out of reach, I'll call it. And then with an
100%.
early
Yeah.
dump,
And I'm like, put your logical hat on and think, all right, if you make a golf swing at the ground, I don't care if it's on turf or it's on the bunker, where's the bottom going to be? Somewhere in the middle or maybe slightly forward if you're a good player. Why in the world would you put it on your left foot?
yeah.
So I don't know. It's just something
But
that I've
that's
really had
it's the
success
same thing
with.
though, right? They're like, well, the magazine said, it's the same thing I'll see with fairway woods with players off our dirt in Tucson. That ball
Yeah.
is so far ahead of where they could ever get a low spot that, for the average player, depending on if I feel like they can make a change or if they really want to make a change, for the average player bunker, I just move the ball back. I'll just,
100%.
they're going to hit behind it. And like you've mentioned, they already early dump it. I will
Yes.
try to have them feel like they have shaft lean, especially in Tucson where our bunkers are firm.
That's
I'll
right.
often add shaft lean and try to have them keep it because they're just super dump, fall back, tilt, and it's disaster.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't
It's
completely
great.
out
I
of
think
my
it's
mind.
fantastic. I love that. No, the
I mean,
simpler the better. I think
I
is
film everything,
great.
with my good players and my tour players, and they don't think about shaft lean because they already got it.
Yeah.
Okay, they already know that that's a key component to controlling low point. So, I'll film them like, do you understand? Like, you got a little bit of shaft lean. They're like, yeah, I never really thought about it, but yeah, of course, because they know where the club's going to land.
I really like that because so often people think this bunker technique, okay, I need to have all these other things. It's like, no, we just literally need you to hit the sand right before the ball. It's not as, freaked out as you see. And you see the tour players with a wide open face. And it's like, no, we just need you to hit behind it and not freak out. And it doesn't have to be this massive overhaul. So I think the way that you phrased it and the way that you found it, I think is brilliant.
Yeah, and again, that's like, and I heard like you've seen, I love the Tiger video you posted to him and Scotty, and
Yeah.
like he's trying to hit draws, right? Now you got two. I mean, again, it's whoever's in front of you.
Yeah.
If somebody's under lane, you might have like they're steeper, but for the guys swinging out the in already, and they're like trying to swing more out the in, they're going to get worse. They may need to feel like it's a full swing.
Exactly,
whatever,
and it's the debate of feel and real, and exactly.
Love it, dude. This has been great. Have you got a couple more minutes for just a couple random?
I got 5 more hours, bro.
I love it.
I could rip all day.
Yeah. So what we try to help the young coaches out there, right? So coming up, and our the landscape is changing. I think a lot with all the information that we're getting in is available to them with the internet. I'm a lot older than you are, so I was there before the internet. But what advice would you give like a young coach? I'm sure some come shadow you like they do me and ask that question, like what would be some of the things, whether it's certifications or just avenues that you would give them to get better?
So my advice, and of course you always want to do the best you can, and of course you want to be the smartest you can. My advice is get a ton of reps. Get so many reps. I think now I'm like maybe like 40,000 lessons deep, and I think within the last few years I feel like okay, I'm pretty good at this. Early on, I didn't really know what I was doing. I was doing my best. No one's trying to give bad info. Like it's okay to also say it's okay to say I don't really know why. I don't know why, but I'm going to try to get help. But I think a lot of coaches, I think it's good to get certified. I think it's good to listen to smart coaches. I think it's good to do as many classes as you can. I still love doing all that stuff, but so often some are afraid to start teaching a lot of people because they feel like they're not quite ready yet. And the challenge with that is you're never really going to be as ready as you would want to be. You've got to just kind of throw yourself into the fire. And if a lesson really goes bad, just say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to charge you for that. It's okay you got to just get reps in because with coaching, like, we're in the people business, and
That's
early
right.
on, I wasn't great, but man, I was like, people keep signing up. We had a great time. I was encouraging. I would kind of show them basic, simple things that I knew could get them better that wouldn't really screw anyone up, right? Like simple drills. And so I think being able to not be afraid to fail and get reps is something I think is extremely valuable, because you will see a lot of unique people, a lot of unique swings, and it's okay to not always feel prepared. And it's great to have a lot of reps of trying to problem solve unique swings in
Yeah.
unique people, right? It's so I do like all the certifications. I like getting as smart as you can, but oftentimes I'll see people not teach as much as I believe they should because they don't feel like they're qualified quite enough. And there's some amount of doing a lot of lessons that you just start to learn things that help you later on. Like I'm sure, again, I know you've taught a lot, and you're very experienced, a very good coach. But I think early on we both agree, like, man, I was okay. I was doing the best I could. I didn't know what else to
No,
do.
you only know what you know. That's what I always tell
Yeah,
people. It's
yeah,
like, learn more. And again, there's no excuse nowadays for being stupid, right?
totally. That,
It's like
yeah,
the young coaches. I'm like, if you want to get ahead before doing the work, then I don't have any for you as a mentee. So it's
yeah,
like, do the deal.
yeah. You gotta,
Go get the info and put the work in. And like you said,
yeah,
even if you got to teach for free, I don't
yeah,
care.
totally. I
Like
think that's
that
great.
is,
I think that's great. Like, teach your friends, teach again, teach people that are low stress, that like aren't
yeah,
paying you, to just kind of figure some things out, to where when they start paying you, I understand why some people get nervous, because hey, they're paying for a service,
yeah,
but you've got to be able to figure out, or maybe what you're good at coaching or what you're not good at coaching, or where you need more work. And yeah, to help players. And that's where I would also recommend, I like teaching a lot of skills, as far as we want great technique, we want these things, but as long as you can even explain, and I've had this early in my career, I had a few people say, man, that was a great lesson you gave me. And I remember early on, I was like, man, that did not go well. But they said,
a different point of view.
right? Like, what are you talking about? I felt I couldn't sleep that night because it didn't go well. But they
I've been
said,
there.
yeah, right. But I mean, they said, you explained and showed me why I was doing what I was doing. So again, worst cases, explain to people and just show them, hey, here's why we're seeing you hit way behind the ball, right? There's this massive shift off the ball. We're under rotate, we're releasing our wrist early. So they said, you explained what I was doing, even if I didn't really know how to fix it.
There you
I
go.
could show them why. I could show them why they were struggling.
Yeah.
And then also, again, I'll teach a lot of skills, in a sense that if I have an okay player, and I'd say maybe 5 to 10 handicap, I believe shot shaping and face to path is more of a fundamental than extra credit. So I will educate them, meaning, hey, you saw that shot that you hit right and stayed right. Well, that's when our club path works this way, and the club is square to that path. That's why it didn't curve back. And if we have the face more closed here, that will, so you're just kind of educating them,
Sure.
worst case, in how to use the club like a tool. I think those are some simple ways to add value, instead of always just trying to fix them. At least educate them on what we see that they're doing that is probably causing issues. Explain to them when they hit a good shot or a bad shot, what the club is doing. Because I don't mind what the body does, but the ball only cares about the club. So if we can just help them understand what the club is doing, and then also if someone hits a bad shot, something that was big for me early, is I said, okay, we're in learning mode. Like, it's okay to hit bad shots. And explaining, like, if they hit it slightly thin on one shot, just say, I mean, in all reality, like, the club just swung a little bit too high. Try again.
There you go.
And then,
Yeah.
brush them out a few times. But people are not, a lot of the average people, they're not very skilled, and they'll come into the lesson and they'll shake your hand and they'll miss. And then you got to teach them how to hit a golf ball with a golf club, which is a surgically precise skill. And it's okay to just say, hey, yeah, you were a little bit high that time, or try again. I think that instead of having to be like, oh, you did this that time, you did this time, you did this time, just say, no, try again. Like, let's do this five to 10 times. Let's work a rehearsal in there. I'll really try to improve motions. I'll really try to improve movements. I don't have them hit a lot of balls. I have them really understand the motion and things we're trying to improve so that they can maybe practice it at home. And then, have them, obviously we're trying to have people hit better shots, but I think just educating people, giving them skills, and not being afraid to say, try again. Like, that was actually close to the movement we wanted. I know it's new, but like, give it another go.
Yeah. And what you're describing there is getting the buy-in with what we've always called the IQ versus the EQ. And you said that beautifully. It's like having the information is one thing, but you got such a great personality. I already want to come hang out with you.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So,
That'd be great.
But what you're describing is what I call, it's called the EQ, the emotional intelligence, the empathy, reading body language, just connecting with the student, right? I mean, do you think that's a learned skill, and where do you think that comes from you?
Yeah. So this is where, and you'll see it. And like I mentioned, we're in such a people business. There's a few people I teach, some older people. I think I'm their best friend. And
oh, me too. Yeah, it's
right,
like
right, same thing, right? It's like a lot of times, so you have to keep in mind, like you talked about, we're probably the cheapest therapists on the planet as well. So we're actually pretty cheap. So, but they just want to be around people and feel welcomed and feel encouraged, and and I have some students that they don't actually, and it works for me. Obviously, you can run your business how you want. But they just want to, hit a few good shots, talk about what's going on in the world. So to have great people skills, great communication skills, I'm a big believer in, like you mentioned today, we said, are we still on? I'm like, I don't miss book. I don't run late. I don't.
No, I wasn't trying to offend you there.
I know you were.
I was just reaching out.
No, I know. I totally know you were. But that's the thing. I'm like, I'm sure some people are like, hey, we kind of have a lesson next Friday. Oh, I totally forgot. You want to really start, I send people a lesson reminder the day before. I send video follow-up to every lesson I've ever done. I will send you the next day. I send you videos from the lesson, what to practice in either text or email. I've done that my whole life.
Do you use an app for that, or you just use
text I just use text and
I do the same thing.
Email. Yeah. So that way, and then a lot of times, what you can do, same thing for a new coach, is, get video, and if you record a great shot or two, send that to them. Then they show their friends. Then their friends want to get lessons with you. So it's an easy way to somewhat advertise and get word of mouth. But there's some, it's a people business, and you see some coaches, and you can have great info, but if people don't like being there, if they feel stressed to be there, a lot of people, when they get a golf lesson, this is their free time. They're retired. They want to enjoy this. And they want to be around someone they like, and someone who remembers their name, and someone who remembers, things they like, and how their life's going, and how their grandkids are doing. And like that you don't have to do that, but I feel like that's helped me in my business, is making people have fun. And
well, you just do it because you care.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you're not, that's what the same way. I think when I have young coaches come shadow me, and I had several, it's an honor, for the first thing. And they talk about, hey, they dig into the weeds about what to do this. I'm like, well, did you see how I ask about that person's kids? How's their job going? And that's the cool thing about it. We get to teach a bunch of really successful people.
So cool.
And I like to just dig into okay, what makes you successful? And I'm like the dude on Instagram that is, interviewing millionaires and billionaires. I'm like that guy in between. Plus, it creates spacing, right, to the lesson, because I'll get into a conversation with them, not because I care and I'm interested, I'm curious, but it also creates spacing, which is another.
Yeah, and we're not trying to waste time, and we want to give high value. And exactly, I know you're doing the same, but you want to develop a connection to where the sport matters, but people matter. I love people, and I care about people. And I love teaching this this sport that, most of the people we teach, no one needs it. Like, no one needs to play great golf. They need a hobby, and they pick this frustrating game that's very difficult. So I want to help them play this game better. But underneath all that, the human connection and communication goes a long way.
So good. All right. Couple little more quick hitters, I promise.
Cool.
I
got time, dude.
Okay, cool. We're going to keep going.
Let's go.
How has a failure or a roadblock in your life set you up for later success? Do you have a favorite failure or story?
Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely learn the most from failures. Failures are a requirement for success. They're not fun at the time, but if a lesson doesn't go well, or if something doesn't work right, or any of that, that's where I've learned the most. And that's where the reps just matter. Again, you want to give great lessons all the time, and you want everyone to get better, but it's when you have maybe certain things or certain areas that you want to improve in as a coach, those failures are mandatory to get, in my opinion, where you're at, and where I'm trying to get as well. Just specifically, I mean, I think golf, it's a special game, and a lot of people go through a lot of hard stuff, and it can be used. Golf can be used as like a safe place. It's helped me in the past. It's helped so many people get their mind off things. So, yeah, I think just understanding that everyone's in a different place, and that failure is okay. And honestly, failure makes you better. It's not fun at the time, but if something doesn't go well in your coaching, like, use it as a chance to learn. Don't use it as a massive negative without being able to turn it into a positive. Try to figure out, okay, what could I have done differently? What maybe maybe I should have. And what I've found too is for the average person, member at my club's like 25, 30 handicap. I'm trying to change as little as possible, because I know they're not going to practice well. I can explain if they want to. I'll go down the route of what it would take. But I'm really trying to educate them and change as little as possible in ways I know that can have a positive impact. So for a lot of golfers, I will change a lot of grips. I change a lot of grips for some people. If they have that face wide open, sure, we'd love to do the wrist, we'd love to do all this, but in all reality, if they can just put a different hold on the club, and it can get the face less open, and that solves a lot of their issue, I'm going to do the simpler the movement, the better. Always asking what their goals are so that you can accomplish, those goals. Because a lot of times, like you mentioned, if their goal is to shoot 85, honestly, if I chipped and putted for them, they would shoot in the 70s. So like it's trying. What's your actual goal? Like, a lot of people just want to hit it better. They don't really necessarily want to score better. They want to hit the ball better. The physical act of hitting a golf ball nice is a great thing, even if they don't necessarily improve. So really trying to make sure you're clear on what a student wants when they start working with you, I think is good. So if any coaches out there have, I would have some amount of like a questionnaire if they sign up for a lesson, like, what is your goal for this session? What are we trying to accomplish? If it is just taking a few strokes off here, most people want swing stuff because they just think, oh, I got to hit it better to shoot, 85. And it's like, not really. You got 13 strokes to spend. Like, we gotta have a lot of par and bogey putts. Like, we don't need to ball strike a course to death. So it's just understanding that, I guess.
All right. What is an unusual habit or an absurd thing that you love? Something nobody knows about.
Unusual habit. Oh, I got a great one. So on airplanes, I will eat a bag of Lifesaver wintergreen mints. I just smash Lifesaver wintergreen mints on airplanes like it's. I mean, I don't have my airplane bag. I just crush these wintergreen mints.
Okay.
And I don't know why. I bought one bag one time, and I will just destroy a bag of Lifesaver wintergreen mints. What else? What other things? I drink like 6 Topo Chicos a day, just the sparkling water. I crush those.
Are
I'd
you
say the winter games are
superstitious?
good.
Are you superstitious at all? Like when your players are
This
playing?
is like what the tour players say, right? What do
Yeah.
they say? They're like, I'm not superstitious. I just, I have my routines. It's like, okay. But, yeah, I mean, if I wear a certain shirt and my player shoots 10 under, I'm probably going to pack that shirt next week.
I'm the same way, dude. I'm the same way.
I don't know if they like the way I looked in it. Probably not.
Like we think that like if we put our sunglasses a certain way on our hat, like it's going to affect the game, Or like, oh, I made birdie. Let's go.
But yeah, it's the same way that a player, they'll eat somewhere, and then if they play great, I probably can know where they're going to eat the next night. It's funny.
Got to do it. All right. In the last 5 years, what new behavior, belief, or habit has most improved your life? Not golfing wise, your life.
Wow. I would say so. I get up every day at 4:30, and I do some type of exercise, either like a bike, or I try to get up as early as I can and move. I'll do some meditation stuff because I feel like it's important actually for golf game for your golf.
Yeah,
but
that's
being
great.
able to
What do you do?
being able to
What kind of
yeah.
meditation? Do you use an app? Or
Oh no, so I'm kind of old school. I like a lot of theological stuff, and I'm a Christian myself, so like religion and prayer is a big part of my life. So besides like reading some scripture or books, or but just waking up and having some time away from this chaotic world that we live in, with everything's at your fingertips, to somewhat have a routine and a plan and time for yourself to stay sane is massive. And
yeah,
I think having some type of release, as far as again like exercise or positive hobbies. We'll see. I think I'm gonna try skateboarding again. I don't know if this is gonna be great, but like I'm just gonna try. I know. Don't worry. But like,
be careful.
To have things you look for. I believe me. I don't know if I will. See, but like just doing some things that bring joy to your life, and I really enjoy helping out people, and I think everyone can kind of struggle when they just think about themselves, and to just help others and think of others. And a lot of people are going through tough times that you don't know, so really just trying to be patient with humans. And I tell everyone, every time you have a slow person in front of you driving that doesn't move, just pretend it's your grandma. You say, that's my okay, so like it might be someone's grandma, and that's it's like I can just calm down a little bit.
I love it. Yeah, that's two of the most common things that I hear from high performers that I interview is meditation or prayer and exercise, right? I mean, and I'm big on that as well. I use this app called The Way.
Cool.
Henry Schuckman, that's pretty consistent with. So
I love that. Yeah, and then just doing something that's like simple, right? Like let me just pray, meditate for 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be this
10 minutes a day. You can find that in your
that's
day.
It. Just do it easy. Make it small and easy. Make it reachable.
All right, last one. If you listen to the show, you know what's coming.
Okay.
If you had to get a message to the world, billions of people, and put it on a gigantic billboard, what would your message say and why?
I mean, it would. I wish all humans realize we're all on the same team, right? I wish, like back in the day, just imagine like cavemen and stuff. They're just trying to survive. They're not trying to start war. Like you're just trying to find food and shelter. And we are so beyond that I would say, realize that we, especially with everything going on in today's world, and again, not
Yeah.
to be political, of course, but just
I know.
on every end of the spectrum. It's just, I think we'd all agree, it's just sad at all these different levels. It's not just certain people or certain groups. It's sad to see what's happening to lots of people. And I wish that we could all just realize we're all on the same team, and to love one another. It's easier said than done, and I think everyone wishes they could do it better. But we're all on the same team, and really try to love everyone. That's a tough question, dude. But I don't think anyone, if you saw it said love one another on a billboard, again, would it probably trigger some people nowadays? Probably, which is a bummer. But
no, it's great. And you kind of answered it prior to when I asked it. Life, right? It's like be nice to people, right? And realize everybody's got their problems. Like I always say, it's a cat kicking world.
Yeah.
You don't know what somebody else is dealing with and how they're reacting to a situation, right? So
really
you got to have some patience, especially in this day and age of chaos. So
for sure.
Dude, I appreciate your time. This has been so much fun. It's great to finally connect with you, and hopefully we run into each other on the road or at a workshop or
I would love
something.
to.
But
absolutely,
anything I can ever do for you, happy to help.
Thank you. Same. Back to you. Thank you.
So drop your socials, drop your website. How can people reach out to you? You got to go follow them. I mean,
sure.
Probably everybody is already following you, but you've got such a great community that you've built, and you're doing such great work. And I really appreciate what you're giving to the golf industry.
Appreciate that. It's just like you. There's nothing I'd rather do. If I got paid zero, I'd do the same. It's such a cool opportunity to be able to teach a game I just love playing. I love helping people. I love learning about. It's such a cool opportunity. So my main, where I share most of my stuff is on Golf Better Tucson on Instagram. I have a backup account, Derek Deminski PGA. That's kind of its own story. But that's where I do most of my work. My website, if anyone does want to reach out or contact, my website is golfbettertucson.com. Contact page on there is how I set up just all my lessons, got all my information on there. That's the best way to contact me. So Instagram, golfbettertucson, website, golfbettertucson.com.
Perfect, my man. I appreciate your time, and hope to catch up with you soon. Hang in there for a second, and we'll sign off. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.